to Ask the Patient Advocate podcast, where we will discuss all things related to navigating your health. I am Dr. Elena Borrelli, and I'm so excited to talk about such an important topic of private patient advocacy. Managing your health and navigating the healthcare system is challenging, but it's a lot better when we go through it together. Welcome back to a new episode of Ask the Patient Advocate podcast. Today's episode is one of resilience, advocacy, and redefining survivorship. Our guest, Brandy L. Benson, was diagnosed with terminal Ewing sarcoma while deployed in Iraq with the U.S. Army. She was given 8 to 12 months to live and an approximate 15% chance of survival. Today, she is in full remission, thankfully, a veteran advocate, author, Department of Defense research contributor, and a powerful voice reshaping what survivorship looks like. Brandy, welcome to Ask the Patient Advocate. I'm so glad to have you on today.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here. Anytime I get to share my story in any capacity, it's always an honor to empower people, to inform them. And that's what truly matters to me. And advocacy is just something that I do naturally. And I've just kind of lived day by day, incorporating that into my life. So thank you so much for having me and sharing my story with you.
Of course. Mm-hmm. I mean, your story, from the little that I know, is very inspiring. So let's kind of start from the beginning. So maybe take us back to that moment in 2009. Mm-hmm. You were deployed, serving your country, and then you received this terminal cancer diagnosis. So I'm sure a lot of things are going through your mind, but tell us a little bit about what was going through your mind.
Yeah, so it was December 2009 is when I started feeling not so well. So I was experiencing extreme fatigue. I was kind of depressed because it's December timeframe. It's the holiday season. I'm 23 years old. I'm away from my family. I'm literally miles and miles and worlds away from my home, my country, my family. So I was just feeling, a little depressed.
Sure.
And I had been working out a lot. So I kind of chalked it up to this like exhaustion internally was just from being depressed and, mm-hmm. Being in the middle of war. There's bombs and mortars coming on our base, and it's just extremely scary. So that's why I thought I was so exhausted on top of working out. And then maybe like a week into December timeframe, had been stretching, and I pulled my left leg up to my chest and I ran my hand down the inside of my leg, and I felt a lump. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I've been an athlete my entire life. I've never had just some sort of lump kind of protruding out of my leg. So I didn't think anything of it. And that was mainly because I'm 23 years old. I'm in the best shape of my life. I literally have a six-pack. And, as women and those listening, yes, that's extremely hard to have as a woman. So I'm in like the best shape of my life. I'm running faster than some of the guys. I'm doing more push-ups than them. So I didn't think that whatever was in my leg was something to be detrimental to my health whatsoever. So I kind of I left it alone for about a week and a half. And then I ended up showing one of my NCOs on a lunch break that I had. And he was, he probably knew a little bit more than I did, but he's told me, you really have to get that looked at. And I was like, oh my God. Well, if my NCO thinks that this is like really bad, maybe I should, go to the doctors. And we call them the medics down where we're at in Iraq. So I go to the medic station and I show them my leg, and she looks like someone threw cold water in her face. She looks really surprised. And I'm like, oh God, this must be a really bad like strain or pull on my leg. Like, and I don't know what's going on. I'm extremely cancer illiterate. I didn't even know what a tumor was. I never met anybody who had a tumor. I thought people who got cancer were extremely unhealthy. They smoked, they drank, bad habits. They didn't work out. They didn't eat well, because I didn't fit that frame of what I thought cancer looked like to people. I didn't think what people were telling me, this is bad, this doesn't look normal. I didn't think it'd be anything, again, bad to my health. So she tells me to go back to my room, go pack my bags, and get everything ready to get shipped out to go to Iraq. And I'm like, what? Not Iraq, to go to Baghdad. And so I was like, okay, well, this must be something, pretty serious, but not that serious. So I then go to Baghdad. I get to Baghdad, And the doctor comes in, we do a CT scan, and he says to me, okay, well, we can tell there's like blood flow in and out of this mass, and it's your choice. You can either go to Germany to get an MRI, or you can stay here in Iraq and go back to Fob Echo. It's up to you. And I was like, oh my gosh. But because I was so tired and I was so like just mentally drained from just everything that was happening, I was like, the further I get away from war, the more rest and sleep I'll get. And so I opted to go to Germany because I knew that I would get more rest. I'd get more sleep. I'd be away from war. I could get some beer. I could eat some yummy gummy bears. I'd be in Germany. So I was like, I'm going to go there instead. So I go there, I get an MRI, and then that's when I kind of find out like what's really happening with me. But I had no idea the entire time that I was, kind of being trugged along the way from Baghdad to Landstuhl, Germany. I didn't really know what was going on until they kind of delivered the really bad news to me after we did the biopsy. And I remember before we did the biopsy, I come into the doctor's, and the doctor says to me, well, let's just hope and pray it's not Ewing sarcoma. And I was like, what is that? And, back in the day, I don't believe we had anything like recording, so you can record the call. So I'm like writing down on a piece of paper, like Ewing sarcoma. I probably spelt it wrong. And I
Hmm.
go online and I'm looking for it. And I see that, oh my gosh, this one is a really bad cancer. And I'm like, oh God, I hope and I pray that I don't have that either. Because, like what could this possibly be? Like there's no way I
Right.
have cancer in my leg. There's just no way. And then like who has cancer in their leg? Like when you watch TV and you see the commercials, cancer is in the breast, it's in the,
Yeah, it's not a commonplace for sure.
yeah, it's not a commonplace. So I'm like, there's no way. And then if you read the profile of it, it's young boys and they are Caucasian, and I'm black. I'm in my 20s and I'm a woman. So I was like, there's no way. So I definitely scratched off my list. I was like, it's just, probably some sort of benign tumor, and that's what we're going to get back. So I go back to the doctors, and then they tell me that it's a nerve sheath tumor. And so they misdiagnosed me for whatever reason, whatever it was, but they don't tell me it's Ewing sarcoma. They say it's a nerve sheath tumor. So then I know I'm going to go online, do some research, and find out what that is. And then that's when I find out that it's cancer. But according to the doctor, this is like the better one to have. So even though I don't have Ewing's, but I have this other, I still have cancer.
Hmm.
And during this time, I was in constant contact with my mother. So I would call her every single day while I was deployed when I could. But when we were in Germany, I was able to talk to her a little bit longer. We weren't, it was just a different opportunity when speaking with her. So on the call, I remember talking to her, and I was just so scared. And like, I felt like I was going to let her down. I don't know why, but I just felt like I was going to let her down, knowing and telling her that I had cancer. Some other stuff kind of backtracked that I didn't say. So my sister was also deployed during this time, and my sister has had a boy. His name was Donovan, and my mother was watching him while she was deployed. So she has two daughters who are deployed. She has one that's possibly coming back with a terminal illness and this cancer.
Oh my.
Yeah, and so I was like, gosh, I just don't want to add this extra stress on top of my mother. Like this is going to be really hard. So I end up delivering the news to her, and it was so terrible. It was so sad. I remember telling her that I had cancer. That's what the doctors think it is. And then she just started screaming on the phone. And I
Oh.
broke down and we were crying. And it was just so hard. And, like she had Donovan, and Donovan was crying. He's a little 2-year-old, so he's being a brat as well. And I remember before we got the call, she said, I'm going to be there no matter what. She said, I'm leaving everything, everything. So she left her job, her friends, her family, the house, left everything to come take care of me in the hospital. Um, yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful thing because I definitely don't think I would have made it without her for sure.
Mothers are special.
They are. They're like the superheroes of everyone's
Yeah,
story.
agreed. Agreed. That is an incredible journey that you had. You've spoken about like the unique challenges in the past that veterans face navigating healthcare. What did you learn about advocating within like the military and VA system? Did you find like unique challenges trying to get the diagnosis, or did you feel it was pretty like streamlined? And it seems like they took it seriously, at least in the beginning. What other issues did you have?
Yeah, so I definitely learned that you can't be passive in like complex systems, especially like in the military and the VA healthcare systems. The systems are very structured, they're layered, they're bureaucratic.
Or
Yeah. And to understand and how to navigate it, you can get really lost in the system because people are telling you what to do and where to go and how to do things, and advocating for yourself and talking and speaking up on your own behalf, and doing the research. Like you need to do all those things. And when I was in the hospital, I had several opportunities for me to advocate for myself, but because I was depressed, I was lost, I didn't know the correct answers to ask. I had never been in this situation. I was kind of just being drug along. I didn't truly understand what was happening. I just knew that
Mhm.
like life was happening extremely fast. And it was like being on a roller coaster ride, and you're on this ride and everything is just zooming past you so quickly. Like there's no time to soak it in. There's no time to kind of come back with better questions or better answers because you have to move really fast. Your life depends on this treatment plan. So I truly wasn't advocating for myself in the very beginning as much as I thought I could have or should have, but my mother was there for me. So she was asking all the right questions. She had the pen and the paper. She had doing the research. So where I was falling short, she was there advocating on my behalf and helping me. So while yes, advocating for yourself is extremely important, if you can't, I think it's very important to have somebody who can advocate for you and who can assist you. And not only advocating for you, but also kind of changing the narrative of whatever it is you're going through. And as we all know, cancer is a very, complex disease. It's extremely scary. And you can get lost in the clouds of depressions very quickly because Dr. Google will tell you one thing and something else could be happening completely different. So, like we said, when we opened up the call, the doctor said I have they gave me a year to live.
Mhm.
They told me that I wouldn't make it past 5 years. Um, and right now I'm in my 17th year. So
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, thankfully they weren't correct about that. But so having my mom there, I remember there was one specific instance where she put a note on my door because the doctor was coming in and out and in and out. And, I was updating my will and making sure everything was aligned and in order in the event that I pass away. They thought the cancer was going to spread to my lungs, my spinal cord, and my brainstem. I had a priest coming in every single day with this massive cross praying over me. It was so depressing. I was just like, wrapping myself up, basically getting ready to pass away. And my mom was just watching me become more and more depressed. I'm losing interest in the things that I used to love and bring me pleasure. I'm not really talking. I'm preparing myself to die at 24 because that's what the doctors, and we have been ingrained to believe the doctor. So that's what I'm thinking. So she ends up creating this on this piece of paper that says, "Do not enter unless you're feeding her, taking her vitals, or giving her medication." And she puts this piece of paper on the outside of my door. And so that stops all of the negative banter that's coming in or what they think could be possibly happening to me. And when she does that, she comes back over and she sits down on the bed and she gives me this pep talk. And she says to me, "Brandy, I know the doctors don't believe in you. I know the statistics are stacked up against us." And she would always say us. It was always us. We're doing this together. So it was like a team
So
thing.
you weren't alone, yeah.
So I wasn't alone. And so she was like, "I believe that you can do it." She's like, "We have to do this together. We have to be more positive. We have to figure out what we need to do." And then she was like, "What are we going to do after this?" She's like, "I believe in you. She's like, there are miracles every single day. Why can't you be one of them?
That's amazing.
And I was
I
like,
mean, that's what you needed to hear, right?
yeah, yes. And I said, oh my God, if this woman who knows me, she birthed me, she's watched me, she's raised me, if she thinks that I can do it, maybe these doctors are wrong. Maybe they're not right. So we then started playing with like changing the narrative of cancer and what we were experiencing. So instead of crying all the time, we started laughing. Instead of being like, oh my God, preparing for my death, we started preparing for the future. What is that going to look like? What are we going to do? I started thinking, I'm going to write a journal and I'm going to write a book one day and I'm going to do all these great things. And I'm going to talk to organizations such as, as yourself and doctors. And we really started changing how we thought what our future was going to look like. And when we started doing that, I started responding to the treatment much better. It wasn't as hard. My levels would improve faster. I wasn't down as long. But it was her who advocated for me. And when she did that and I was able to follow her lead, everything changed for me for the better.
That's amazing. I mean, it's good, and I see the benefit of, you need the honesty of like the statistics from the medical professionals, of course, right?
Hmm.
But at the same time, those are just based off of statistics. Everybody has their own story. Cancer has its own
Hmm.
course for everybody. And so it does make people depressed because they're kind of saying like my odds are like next to nothing.
Hmm.
So, it's very in I see patients all the time get very, very depressed because it's like, well, enjoy the time you have. Well, it's hard to do that when everybody's telling you like counting your days
Yeah,
type of thing, right? So
exactly.
that was amazing that your mom did that for you and you guys were able to kind of flip the switch, which is
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah,
It's so great to hear, and I know a ton of our listeners will be happy to hear that. And
yeah.
so, with your specific diagnosis, it's considered rare. A lot of times they call it like orphan cancer.
Hmm.
Can you explain the barriers, in your opinion, because we deal with this a lot, what rare diseases often face?
Yeah, so I definitely feel like with rare cancers, they come with a different kind of isolation. There's often a limited research. There's fewer clinical trials, fewer specialists for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's delayed diagnosis because the providers can't, they can't recognize the symptoms immediately. So
Mhm.
for my example, that was misdiagnosed. I also feel like second opinions are super huge. Like you need to know that that is an option.
I agree. I always say that, so I can't agree
Yes,
with you more.
it
Yeah.
is. It is so important. It is. And so I sit on the board of directors for the Sarcoma Alliance, and that's one of the things that we do is like second opinions and just, you really got to get to a specialist because this is a very, very complex disease, and not everybody should be working just because you're a general, surgeon or
Right.
oncologist doesn't mean you should be working on any kind of tumor. This is you got to get clean margins and you have to do it just
Yeah, you have to know the specifics, the genetics, and all of that related to it.
exactly. Yeah. So for rare disease patients, the burden of education often for me, I feel like it falls on the patient or the caretaker. I feel like we definitely become researchers. We become the connectors, and we become advocates really at the end of everything, and then survivors, hopefully. But I do feel what is like beautiful about the disease community is just becoming incredibly strong. And it's like the best community or club to be with. It's too bad it's cancer because I do feel like people are really rooting for you and pushing for you and want the best for you. And there's so much like love that comes from the people and unity, but it's from it derives from having
From
this
pain, yeah.
yeah, this horrible disease and this pain. But yeah, I definitely feel like there are different barriers, and it's totally different from the regular, you
More
know,
common, yeah,
cancer.
cancers
Yeah,
and
it's
conditions.
fewer options with access to the treatment.
It's amazes me even now how often I hear from patients that they're like, "Well, I'm nervous to ask for a second opinion because my I don't wanna make my doctor mad." And I'm
Mm,
like,
No.
That if your doctor is truly mad about you wanting a second opinion, that's not the doctor for you, because
Yeah.
they should want you to get the best care regardless if it's with them or someone else. There's no harm in getting a second or third opinion. This is your life, right?
Yeah.
And even if it's the same, like a lot of times you may have the exact same recommendation, but that kind of helps you solidify that, hey, maybe this is actually a good choice and I need to go with it. But yeah, it really, every when I hear that, I always like cringe, because it's such a, it's sad that that's still kind of a thought process that a lot of people have. So you talked about reshaping the survivorship narrative, which I love. And you mentioned you're on the board of the Sarcoma Alliance, and you serve in a consumer perspective role, reviewing sarcoma research for the Department of Defense, which is amazing. Why is patient input so important in clinical trials and research reviews, in your opinion?
That's a really good answer. I think because patients live what researchers really study.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I say for me, when I review sarcoma research, especially for the DoD, I'm not just looking at the data. So I'm asking, is this trial accessible? Are there inclusion criteria? Is it realistic? We're looking at the burden on patients. Is it reasonable? And then are there quality of life measurings being considered? I think that is probably the biggest one. So like when we're
Quality
going,
of life. Yeah.
yes, quality of life, because
Mm-hmm.
maybe the oncologists definitely, certain doctors, and the patients for sure, and then those who are like immediately affected directly and indirectly with cancer, they don't understand that. Well, no, they do understand how like the toxicity of it all is just horrendous on the body. So you could give us so much treatment, but I feel like you're literally treating us to the brink of death. You bring us back to the brink of death, then you bring us back, and you continue that. Your body gets so exhausted, and then what's the quality of life? You have all of these symptoms from neuropathy, you have brain fog, you have chemo brain, you have all of these issues. So I think it's really important to consider like the life after. So what I always bring up is like, is this treatment regimen, is like, is this really something we could do? Can we do less treatment options, or treatment rounds, or just exploring the
Yeah.
different to make life just a little bit more easier and better, because after cancer and the treatment is done, there is no like back to normal. People say, congratulations, you beat cancer. No, go back to your normal life. But back to
That
normal,
doesn't exist, right?
it doesn't exist. You now have been introduced to trauma. There's like, it includes like financial toxicity. There's long-term side effects, and then there's a huge identity shift that happens with you. Like you're not the same person. So the quality of life for me is just extremely important to be considered, because now you have to live this whole different life, this whole new thing. Um, yeah, definitely definitely feel like quality of life is a big thing that I bring to attention, definitely for the DoD boards.
Yeah, I think I agree. Quality of life is very should be highlighted and really taken into perspective, because everyone's quality of life is different, and when it's not considered, it's going to not steer the right treatment for that specific person. So I can't agree more. For someone listening who may have just received a devastating diagnosis, what would you want them to hear?
I would definitely tell them to first breathe, breathe. Yeah, just breathe for a second, and just breathe, and know that everything is going to be okay. And I would tell them that their diagnosis is not their identity. You are still here. You are still you. The second thing I would tell them that statistics are not destiny, right? Because according to statistics, I shouldn't be here. I think statistics are a population database, but we are an individual. I am a person. I'm not a number. So I don't think that people should just automatically just group themselves to one specific data and just think that that's what your experience is going to be and that's what's going to be happening. That we are all individual people. We all respond to treatment differently. It's just unfortunate that with some of the treatment options, it's not individualized. It's based off of what works for the collective group. But we are individuals. And I think the third thing would be to build your dream team. Um, who is it that's going to be in your corner? Who's going to be the one that you could laugh with? Who's going to be the one that you can that has maybe a possible similar diagnosis, that is doing well, that is thriving, that lived? Who is the doctors that you're going to entrust your life with? So I think building a really great solid team is also super important. And then being able to seek second opinions and lean on a community if that's something that you need. And then finally, I would say to just allow yourself to feel, and that strength does not mean pretending that you're not afraid. It means, for me at least, it means continuing forward despite the fear, despite being scared. Just do it, even if you don't know if you're going in the right direction. You just have to continue to push forward, and you'll learn along the way. And let them know that they're not alone. Even if it feels like you're alone right now, there's somebody out there that can help you, that can give you words of advice, that can be there for you. And I always, no matter what, even for your listeners here, I may not have the same diagnosis as them, or we may, but I'm more than happy to talk to people, to walk them through whatever they need to know, and then be a connector for them, for maybe somebody that has breast cancer in their same stage or same treatment plan.
I love that. Those are all amazing things that I'm sure they would love to hear. Interestingly, you're also the founder and CEO of Resume Advantage and a mentor to students and survivors, which is great. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Resume Advantage was born out of my experience with rebuilding my life after cancer. So I feel like when you survive something threatening, you don't just walk back into the workforce the same way. There are gaps, and then there's like confidence shifts and identity questions as well. So I help the students, the veterans, survivors translate resiliency into a professional strength and into whatever field they're kind of trying to break into, or if they want to get promoted. So I've been able to turn adversity into a leadership narrative that I'm extremely proud about. But yeah, so it's helping all different types of people. It's the veterans, the cancer survivors, um, it's the professionals, the CEOs. But it's just about, putting your best foot forward on that piece of paper, because you can have all of the skills in the world, but if you can't communicate your skills effectively and tell a story on how you are an asset and not a liability, you're not going to get the position that you want. And you're going to miss out on so many opportunities. So I always tell people that it's so important to be able to communicate effectively. And it might just be a piece of paper. That's what it seems like. But this piece of paper can literally change your life and increase your cash flow exponentially, if you're able to position yourself in the right way, and position it in the right way, and have key messaging, I guess we can say, for those HR people to read and say, oh, okay, I can see how their experience can benefit us hiring them.
I love that. Yes, I think that's such a powerful tool that you're giving people when, especially when they're trying to kind of rebuild things, like you said. And your experience is amazing to help them with that, because you know firsthand. So that's great that you're doing that. So Brandy, where can our listeners learn more about you? Because I'm sure they want to, and all the work that you've done and that you're doing. Can you share your book or anything else that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, so I published a book back in 2018.
Mhm.
Find it on Amazon.
I'm gonna get it, so I'm excited to read it.
Yeah, it's a memoir. It's not super long. I think it's like 102 pages or something, but
Okay.
it's super. If you like creative writing, and you like detailed, and you really want to be taken along for like a ride, then that would definitely be the book. And it's just about my experience of what I went through, um, the challenges that I, went. It's literally from the very beginning, being diagnosed with cancer, all the way to the end of, up until 20, I think it was 2013-ish time frame, that I kind of stopped it. But the book, and I didn't mention it, the book was created because during one of my pep talks with my mom, specifically that one, I told her that I was going to start journaling. And I remember I was journaling quite a bit, and I wanted to leave something behind for my nephew Donovan in the event that I did pass away. And maybe this this super happy-go-lucky kind of attitude we were portraying and trying to live in didn't work. I wanted to leave something for my nephew. So I would just journal about what we were doing, our experiences, if he was being
Oh,
a
that's
little
nice.
brat, what was happening. Like I put it all detailed in there. And then one day I was like, you know what? And I made a promise to myself. I said, if I get to live, if God allows me to live, I'm going to change this journal into a book. Now, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I've never written a book. I'd never
Mhm.
talked to anybody who was an author. I didn't know, but I knew that I would have to keep this promise. So I end up living and I open up this journal. I'm like, okay, so I have to figure out how I'm going to publish this thing. So I ended up applying to this college called SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. It's a really great, prestigious creative school. Um, so I get an MFA in writing and I use my journal as my thesis. And they read over it and they love it. They think it's amazing. They're like, "Oh my goodness, Brandy!" And I worked on this quote unquote book for 2 years, so these journal entries then become a book. For 2 years,
Yeah.
and they say, Brandy, we want you to finish it. You gotta finish the book. And I'm thinking, this book is done. This is
You're
can't
like, nope.
anymore. Yeah. I'm like, I'm at my thesis part of my process. Like I'm graduating in a couple of days. Like this thing is finished. So I kind of wrap it up and it's done and finished. And I say, okay, like these people think that's great. These are super well educated professionals in this space. And if they think this is good enough, I'm going to publish it. So I reached out to this company called Bragg Media. We published the book and it's out there. So that's how my book came about. It was journals dedicated to my nephew that then transitioned to a book because I promised God that I would create a book. So that's how the book came about. But also I have a couple of different Instagram pages. I have one that's called Realtor Brandy L Benson, and then I have another one, Resume Advantage, and all of those same thing on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. So that's where you can kind of find me and see, what I'm doing and what's happening.
That's wonderful. That's great. Thank you for sharing all that. And I'm definitely going to be reading your book, so I can't wait.
Awesome.
So, Brandy, your story is not just one of survival, it's one of like systemic change, advocacy, redefining what it means to rise above adversity. And thank you so much for like sharing your story with me and our listeners, for your service, both in the Army and in the cancer community. Your journey reminds us that survivorship doesn't end when treatment does, it evolves. And I think that's something so many people want to hear and really need to hear. So thank you again. And I really hope that this conversation has helped our listeners feel more confident as they navigate their own healthcare journeys. Have a great day. If you have a question for Ask the Patient Advocate, email advocate@pathwaypa.com. Managing your health and navigating the healthcare system is challenging, but it's a lot better when we go through it together.